How many people realize the Supreme Court just agreed to hear a case that could fundamentally end democracy in America? I'm going to need more than my usual 60 seconds to explain this one because it is that serious. The Supreme Court just agreed to hear Moore versus Harper, which asks whether a state's judicial branch can nullify regulations governing how elections are held. Republicans filed this lawsuit claiming that they have more authority than the judge to decide whether a law is constitutional or not. This particular suit came about after a North Carolina judge struck down a voter ID law that targeted black people specifically. The judge found that the Republican legislature crafted this law specifically targeting IDs used by black people and making those illegal. That surgically disenfranchised black people, as the court said, and therefore was unconstitutional because it was racist. Republicans in turn are citing what they call the independent state legislature doctrine, a made-up fringe theory that unfortunately several members of the U.S. Supreme Court now support. And here's why it matters in our upcoming elections and why it can fundamentally change our democracy forever. Imagine this scenario. It's 2024 election night. The Republican and the Democratic candidates each have won the same states that the 2020 candidates won. In addition to winning the popular vote, the Democratic candidate has 306 electoral votes and the Republican candidate has 232 electoral votes. Now comes time for each state legislature to certify the election and send it to the vice president to confirm the new president. If the Supreme Court were to rule in favor of this fringe independent state legislature doctrine, each state could decide who they want to send their electoral votes to regardless of who won the election. That means despite a Democrat winning the popular votes of those states could decide that their electoral votes go to the Republican opponent, therefore installing him as president, despite the fact that he lost the popular vote, despite the fact that he lost the electoral vote. And it would be completely justified under this fringe doctrine because now authority for elections is taken away from the federal government, away from the U.S. Supreme Court, away from the state Supreme Court, and given exclusively to those same racist Republicans who passed discriminatory laws in the first place. I know this all sounds horrifying, but there's a reason why the great late John Lewis said that democracy is not a state, it is an act, and we must act. What does that look like? 1, we must continue to put pressure on President Biden and the Democrats to abolish the filibuster and expand the Supreme Court to 13. 2, you must activate and organize. Every single person you know must vote. Voting alone is not enough. You can click on the link in my bio and register to vote and make sure everyone you know is registered to vote. 3, get involved with candidates. Volunteer, donate if you can, knock doors, make phone calls, send text messages. This is the mobilizing and organizing aspect that a lot of folks forget. The good news is that we do have time to activate and organize. We cannot give up and we cannot give into apathy. Let's continue to work together. Let me know how I can support you, but let's go out there and save our democracy.